for all.
Yeah, oh, no problem. I couldn't move.
Hey, welcome everybody. Board members, make sure your mics are on so we can hear you. Beautiful evening out. And got roll call here tonight. Everybody's present. And now the approval of the agenda. We have before us, we have some additions or deletions.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to add under board discussion, Stantec engineering updates. And there'll be 3 items that I'll be updating the board on.
As supervisor, I'd like to add item number 4 to the administration to the Salem Farm Preserve lease.
Where are we putting it at? Under business items? Or under
7A4.
7A4? Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. All those approve of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is set. Okay, public comment. Okay, if not, oh, all
I
right,
just want to
Mark,
give everybody a
not to cut you
shot.
off.
I just wanted to comment on the advanced disposal news release. I'm very concerned that this could be the calm before the storm. As you probably know, advanced disposal, I think it was the 3rd week of August, announced their IPO. They delayed it in the beginning of January because they wanted to get some more backers. I know that they have been under considerable pressure by their underwriters to make sure there's no PR battles going on. And I believe the statements made in here were created as a result of the pressure of the IPO, get all the nasty stuff out of the way. And what I'm really saying is they're going to come back once the IPO's done and hit us hard. And I think we should be gearing up both within ourselves and our community and all sides politically, tackling the county to get a proper waste disposal management program together that makes sense. And that's particularly helped by the fact that Waste Management are now handling their recycling. Talk about the fox looking after the hen house. But to be perfectly fair, my family home is in the middle of Wales, in the middle of a national park, and Waste Management is my collector of all my rubbish. And they've had to manage a massive recycling program to dramatically reduce waste going into the landfill. In fact, the county I'm in has closed the landfill. You're allowed every other week, and this is a family of 4, 1 bag of rubbish to go into the landfill. Everything else goes into recycling. And everything is policed. If you put stuff in the trash thing that should have gone into recycling, you're in trouble. Likewise, the other way around. Waste Management is the contractor there, so they've got a vast amount of experience, even if they claim ignorance here. Let's not reinvent the wheel, which was the arguments that we had with the county months ago. And really I'm saying you've probably got about 6 months to get Lansing to listen, to get the county to listen, and have a united front here in the township. And I'm really saying, I've been through it in the UK, anything I can do to help, you're welcome to make use of me.
All right,
Thank you.
Mark. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, oh. Yes,
Robert
sir.
Rizzo, 8947 North Territorial Road. Good evening. Had a question on this proposed advanced disposal 245 acres.
240.
Is one of the negotiating tools for us residents lower property taxes if this thing goes ahead and goes forward?
That's what we've experienced now. And in the future, if it's expanded, it still would be lower property taxes.
So is these decisions being made here or with the Washtenaw County guys over there? Or a
It's-
combination of both?
You just, and the plan is approved at the county level, and then from there, the approvals come, and then it depends on the county-wide vote between the townships. They vote for it or against it after the committee sends it to Lansing.
Okay, that was my question, because I thought that would be a negotiating tool with us homeowners with our property taxes and allowing this. Okay, all right,
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to request again that the board consider putting the ewashtenaw.org website link on our website. I think a lot of questions could be answered if residents had access to that, easy access.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Okay, so down to the consent agenda. Mr. Wenzel.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the following consent agenda items. We have the minutes of August 14th, 2016, the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. We also have the disbursements, checks for August 2016, the check roster, $269,519.04. That's checks 26,241 through 26,315. We have checks out of the escrow fund, $16,514. That's checks 1661 and 1665. We had payroll of $49,812.54. It cost us $193.64 using Paycor. And we had disbursements out of the sewer fund, $12,355.86. Checks 1985 and 1986. Invoices for the month of September, total out of the general fund, $468,592.38. Out of the sewer fund, $13,485.25. And invoices for the escrow fund, $20,879. Do I have a second for these?
I'll second it.
Okay, John Daniel seconds it. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Just note that the minutes are August 9th, not August 14th. It's described in the motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is passed. Okay, moving on down to administrative, we have the South Lyon Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Trent.
Mr. Supervisor, if I can just give a brief prelude before I make the official motion. 3 years ago, the township joined the South Lyon Chamber of Commerce. I thought this was a good step for our township to be more actively involved in interfacing with our neighboring communities and those entities north of 8 Mile. And as someone who attends many of the chamber functions and networking opportunities, I've gotten to meet a lot of business people north of 8 Mile, as well as in our own community. And it's helped open up a good dialogue with some of the other elected officials in Lyon Township and the city of South Lyon. And I've had the pleasure of being asked to serve on the board of directors of that chamber since last year. They recognized that they had little input in representation from Salem Township for a number of years. And as you can see in the information that was provided for the board package, the South Lyon Area Chamber of Commerce represents not only the city of South Lyon and Lyon Township, but also Green Oak Township and Salem Township as well. So it's essentially the entire South Lyon School District. And since we are members of the organization, we have the opportunity to vote during any special business meetings that may arise that the chamber may have. And those happen very infrequently. There's a board of directors that meets on a monthly basis to review policies and things of that nature. But this coming month, there is a special meeting to change the bylaws, and that requires a membership vote. And to that end, we need authorization for somebody from this organization to be able to cast a vote on behalf of the township. And so to that end, I'd like to move that Salem Township approve David Trent to be the authorized Salem Township representative for the South Lyon Area Chamber of Commerce membership meeting to be held on September 21st, 2016, and to vote in favor of the bylaws change for the name of the chamber to Kensington Valley Chamber of Commerce.
Seconded.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Trent on this?
Just one more comment, Mr. Supervisor. The name change is something that has been discussed at the board level with the chamber for the last several months, looking to see if there's a better representation of the total area community. And Kensington Valley is the name that has been proposed for the membership. And some initial reaction that we've received from business owners is very favorable to it. They think it better reflects the whole area instead of just South Lyon, because even though the name is South Lyon area, everybody thinks it's just South Lyon, and they fail to recognize that there's a much larger geographic area that's being represented. Also, just to make you aware of it, in case you're not, that the chamber office will be moving in the next 30 to 60 days from its present location, where it's always been in downtown South Lyon, to a new location where our friends in Lyon Township have expanded their township hall. And as a result of that expansion, they have made available some office space at a very considerable discounted rate compared to what the chamber has been paying for rent in the city. So there's a cost savings to making that move as well too. And so the board of directors thought it would be good to dovetail those two items into one action here in the next several weeks.
Does that mean they can have their meetings at Kensington Park? Have a sailboat there, we could have some good meetings out there.
Do you want
That would
to
be fun.
provide free sailboat rides, Mr. Supervisor?
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion's passed. All right, down to the fire department bay doors bid.
Mr. Supervisor, as another brief prelude to making the motion, and there's an updated motion that's been placed on the board table for your consideration tonight. Chief Rockwell has been advising Supervisor Whitaker and myself of the need for looking at our fire department bay doors. Those are original doors that are 35 years old. They've been run into several times. There have been many repairs that have been done to those over the years. And there's certainly much more energy efficient doors that are out there in the marketplace today. And so Chief Rockwell was asked to acquire some quotes for us. 3 of those were submitted as part of the board package. We've reached out to a couple of other vendors, and we received 2 more bids since Friday, and those are attached to the new motion that's before you. Chief Rockwell and I had the chance to discuss some of the quotes with some of these vendors to get some better detail on the design, reliability, what quality enhancement those doors have. And to that end, I'd like to make the following motion. I move that Salem Township approve the bid from Beckway Doors in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for replacing the 4 large bay doors and 1 small bay door in the fire department along with the installation of necessary accessory equipment such as pull cords and sensors.
I'll second that.
Tom seconds, any other discussion on these?
Mr. Supervisor, just to clarify the one quote from Beckway, even though they are not the least expensive, they are offering a door that Chief Rockwell and I thought was superior in its design. It's a heavier gauge. It's got a heavier R rating or higher R rating as far as insulation. And it's a local firm that has been utilized by our friends at the city of South Lyon for their fire department days as well. And some of the other vendors use the same manufacturer, but they quoted different doors. And so, and one of the things that is not included in the Beckway quote, but is included in one of the other quotes, is the 9x9 smaller bay door. So the reason for the increase to $15,000 for the quote is to allow us to acquire the same style door for the smaller bay. And there's also some additional equipment in the fire department that's involved with the operation of the garage door, such as a manual pull cord, sensors that need to be updated, and $15,000 should help us cover all of those costs. And, Mr.
Should these also include the electronic door openers?
No, but two door openers have been replaced in recent months, and even with those improvements, we're still having issues with the doors binding up as they're in operation. That's really what's really driving the necessity for us to replace the doors, is that they're binding up frequently, and that's the last thing we want to do is impede our firefighters from responding quickly.
Question on regards to the door openers, the size of them, are they sufficient to the new doors? Are the doors the same weight, heavier, lighter?
So the existing doors, as Mr. Trent alluded to, if I could, is 1981 technology, wood, glass, very heavy. So the new ones would be the aluminum insulated lightweight doors. So we're gonna get a much more dependable door. We're gonna get much more insulated. Right now, the existing doors have a gap, air gap between them, so in the wintertime, you just feel the cold air rushing in. But as Mr. Trent alluded to, the reason we're really bringing this is that we have the door go halfway up and we're on a response, we can't get out. We're backing apparatuses out, trying to go the other way. So we really need to replace at least one or two of these. And then if you put glass doors with the new aluminum doors, it would look hopscotch out there in front. So we're really looking at, to keep the architecture, to put, the colors the right, so they look all the same. And one of the discussions we had with the doors is, if you look at other townships with well water, putting a white door tends to go to more of a yellow color. So we've got a green facade here, so we were looking at trying to match that. So we wanted a little bit of room for paint or for color aesthetics. But the main driver behind this is currently those doors are 35 years old and commercial. So we have commercial operators, door operators. So I do not see a problem with those functioning with a lighter door.
Any other questions?
Dave,
Linda?
yeah, Dave, so the quote from Beckway, is it the one that the R value is 17.54? Okay,
Yes.
that's a lot higher than the R value of the other quotes.
So our existing doors have a half-inch air gap. So they're gonna be, just in gas and heat loss, we're gonna make a whole, not 17, money, but certainly gonna make a significant difference.
I mean, I would much rather see that than some of these, they have an R value of 10.
That's why we thought that was a better gauge.
And then the door is also a heavier gauge, and some of the hinge components are of a thicker steel, and so we think it's going to be a more robust door.
And that also includes like a row of windows
Yeah,
for light?
I don't want the 3 panels that we have. I thought that was not as efficient, and really, do we need to one row across so that you see the truck is there and not up in there. So we're trying to be economy, thrift on it, but also kind of keep the aesthetics of the building in mind. So I didn't want all blank doors in there, but I thought we should at least have one row of panels.
Mr. Supervisor, not to put you on the spot on this project, but I'd like you to interface with Chief Rockwell if you would. We've got a choice of 4 colors, there's 4 standard colors, but they can be painted to whatever color scheme.
Purple is my company color, purple.
If the board goes with that for the rest of them, I'm happy to accommodate that.
As far as the final order of the product, if you and the chief would concur on which color we want to go with and see if that will work, and then we can always paint it after the fact if need be.
Linda, you got a question?
Well, I have a comment. That had this information been presented in the board packet, as I've requested many times, we had this discussion before a public meeting tonight. The motion on the floor is in violation of board policy. Board policy says for things $10,000, $10,001 and above, a request for proposal must be prepared, and 3 bids must be obtained. A notice to bidders is required to be published in the township's newspaper of record, and should also be sent to all relevant vendors on the approved vendor list. The bids must be sealed. So my first question is, where is the request for proposal? I'd like a copy of it. And then I'd also like to know when the sealed bids were open. The bids in the board packet did not reach this threshold. The highest bid was less than $10,000. And this policy was amended in 2009. I'm reading out of a board packet from that year.
So we have the option, the first option was to replace the front set, first 3, which was under the 10,000. If you want to come back and do the second set at a later date, which would be the back side, that would keep it under the threshold. If you want to do it all at once, we will be over the threshold.
Mr. Whitaker, I don't think the purpose of the policy now is to parse it so you can do it still in violation of the policy. I think that the policy is set up so that everyone is bidding on the same thing. I heard tonight, the doors that are more expensive are better steel, they're better quality. That may be that other vendors can give you those same options. That's the purpose for government to have a request for proposal. So everyone gets to bid on the same package. It's not to parse it out, as Jim Rockwell just suggested, that we somehow can circumvent adopted policy. I'm a little disturbed that someone would even suggest that we circumvent it here tonight.
Not
Mr.
certain.
Supervisor, if I could make a statement and comment on this. The policy that Mrs. Hamilton is referring to is one that I'm well acquainted with. And as Chief Rockwell just inferred, we asked vendors to come out and give us a quote on replacing those garage doors. Each of those vendors has a different manufacturer that they work with. 2 of the vendors actually acquire their product from the same source, but they opted to quote a different product. It was only through going through the detail of what's the difference between these doors that we made the determination that the local vendor, Beckway, had a better door in our mind than some of the other competition. And as we've already pointed out during our discussion here, some of the vendors quoted a door that's smaller gauge, lower insulation, and those are things that we're not familiar with. That's why we go to the vendors to ask them to quote. They came in with quotes that were under $10,000. At least 2 of them did initially, and then we found some other vendors that quoted under $10,000 as well too. The purpose of the motion tonight is to avail us the opportunity to not only replace the 4 doors, which would have been under $10,000, but asking this board to increase the amount to $15,000. And if we want to amend the motion to officially waive the board policy, which we certainly have the right to do, then we could do that to cover the entire cost of this project, which we've asked not to exceed $15,000.
So can we, can we advertise it? Do we advertise it?
Mr. Supervisor, there's no need to advertise if the quotes come in under $10,000.
But if we put it out, in kind of, maybe the price, I don't know. So we had the three bids.
We have five.
Well, actually, we have 5 bids.
We have 5 bids.
Two were, between $15,000 and $20,000. The other 3 were under 10. And the one that was the lowest had probably the least expensive door. And the 2 that were very comparable, 9,200 and 9,800, both of those sources are getting their material from the same distributor. And they opted to quote a different door, and when you look at what the differential is, we're talking $600. Our recommendation is that we go with the local vendor that's been utilized by the city of South Lyon, and we're gonna get a very high-quality door as a result of that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
You have a question over here.
I think what Linda's suggesting is that since the optimal choice is over the parameters of the less than 10,000 bid, what she is suggesting is that you perhaps rebid the project, ask all of the vendors to quote a specific R value or greater, have all of them include all of the miscellaneous accessories that are bits and pieces in different bids, and add that extra door, which you've already said is not included in this one, but you're assuming a certain dollar amount too. So that she's asking that you rebid and get apples and apples versus picking. Sounds like a good idea to me, if the doors will last another month.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a question. Did the doors last another month, or how long does this take to get all these bids together? Because in the meantime, you're telling me there's a door that might prohibit you from getting to an emergency. And as somebody who calls 911 a few times a year,
We changed the trucks around to accommodate that.
okay,
We've done that already. It's, the first proposal, again, was from the board, do we want to replace the first set of doors and think about the back set? Because the back set is not the issue, it's the front set. But then it goes back to the issue, if the board wants to make the town hall look all the same, then you're looking at replacing all the 5 doors. So I need direction from the board, is do you want to do the set? We could technically have 1 door that's got to be replaced, it's the Rescue 911 door. One that's used the most, but then you're going to have a white door with 2 other green, or 4 other green doors. If we go with the front fascia, you're way under the 10 grand. If you go with all 5 doors, you're pretty close to the 10 grand. It's the board's, tell me how you guys want to do this.
Any other comments, board?
I'd like to see comparable bids.
Okay.
And I would like to see it all done at once.
Yeah, I
If
think
that
we need
means
to
we
do
have
it
to
all
go
at
another
once,
month,
so.
that's what I would prefer.
I would suggest tabling it to the next meeting, get bids put in the paper, and then go from there.
Okay.
I agree, and in addition to that, there's nothing wrong with taking the door that we want and writing that as a spec, and everybody has to bid to that spec.
I'm happy to
So it's-
accommodate the board, whatever they would choose as their action.
Okay, let's table that, that's all right.
There's a second on the floor.
I withdraw my second.
So. More motions. For tabling it, or?
I think we just table it until. All right, moving on down to the Washington County Drain Assessment Resolution, Dale Connors.
The supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the payment of the property owner's share of the drain assessment in the amount not to exceed $24,000 as a general fund distribution in lieu of placing the drain assessment on the winter 2016 tax roll.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Sure, everybody has received, at least I know I have, and there's a lot of people who brought them in there, assessments coming in from the assessment office. Everybody's being, basically, I guess mine was $9.83, most of them that I've seen is about that much, which is an increase that is, they have deemed that they need to collect because of the additions and deletion of different areas in the Johnson, Drain, and the other drain assessments. But we have passed this motion now for many, many years that I know of, and we have always been paying the property owner's share of the assessment.
So they added some and deleted some in the assessment areas to the, I believe it was the Johnson Creek.
Yep.
And, so we pay our portion and also the residents'
Yes.
portion.
Our portion will be about $11,505.10, and that will come in forms of an invoice, and that's our share. But we need to pass the motion to pick up the property owners, because we have to give the official notification to Washington County Drain Assessment District out there to make sure that they don't include us on the winter taxes.
Okay, any other discussion? All set? Okay.
As part of this motion, Mr. Supervisor, I would recommend that we amend the budget also. We've got $25,000 budgeted in cost center 372, totaling $25,000. It looks like the total amount's gonna be just a smidgen over 35. I would suggest we modify the motion to include amending that cost center in that line item 817,
Okay.
003.
Can you modify that? Comments?
Yeah. I'll modify my motion to include the cost center to be increased to the $35,500 or $50.92.
Mr. Wenzel, is it okay with your second?
Can we just round up to 100, 35, 100?
Yeah.
Okay, second. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we need a roll call vote on this? Yvonne, please?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
DeLuca,
Yes.
Laughlin,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes. Okay. Down to the farm lease.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the winning bid of the Salem Farm Preserve farm lease for a 3-year term to Kenny Hamlin.
Okay, it's,
The amount of that lease was $20,000, $20,580.
I'll second.
all right. Any discussion on the farm lease?
This would become effective when, please?
Let me take a look at the lease. I don't have the full one. Probably after harvest.
Ken, do you remember when it was, the first of
Would it be the,
January? After
Yeah.
harvest?
sorry, 2017?
I thought it was 2017.
Just so you know, we posted in the newspaper, and we received 3 bids, and I opened them today, and I've got them if anybody wants to look
discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion's passed. All right, down to reports.
Who seconded that?
TJ.
TJ, okay, thanks.
Clerk's expenditure report is submitted, and now to the fire department, Chief Rocco.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I've got a number of things I want to cover. It's been a pretty busy month for the fire department. We had 48 calls, which is about a little bit higher than normal. 35 of those were medical, so again, we were pretty heavy on the medical side. We had a significant calls. I just kind of want to briefly discuss them. We had a MC 306 tanker or fuel tanker gets kind of jackknifed or stuck right across Pontiac Trail at rush hour. What happened was they were coming, I believe, down 7 Mile, made a right-hand turn on Pontiac Trail and saw the sign that says there's a weight restriction of 11 tons. Tanker realized it was overweight, attempted to do a turnaround right there at the party store, and got stuck in the soft shoulders over there, right at rush hour. So again, we put out a nixle alert. We diverted traffic at 8 Mile, we diverted traffic at 7 Mile. I had some discussions with the road commission, asked if they could flag down 7 Mile, because if you turn that corner, the sign that says it's a weight restriction is 11 tons is right there at the intersection, so it's pretty tough to see. So we'll see if that happens. I'd say the second other significant incident we had was a single car into the Jersey barrier on Curtis Road at probably about 55 miles an hour. It split that Jersey barrier in half. So Chubb and Curry both have blocks. Chubb is north of 6 Mile, completely shut down. I think someone tried to move the barricades. The road commission came down and pinned them in place. So there's no moving those barricades now. So they are completely shut down just north of 6 Mile and Chubb, and Curry Road is just south of, or just north of 5 Mile. So again, I'm not sure how long those are going to be blocked, but they certainly are not through passages. These 800 megahertz pagers are going to be provided to the department. We're going to get approximately 25 of these. These are not going to cost us or the township any money. This is part of the 800 megahertz millage that was approved by the residents of Washtenaw County. We're one of 3 counties in the state of Michigan that has it. We're probably the largest county. We're probably about 10 counties in the entire country have this pager. It works off of 800 megahertz. We'll be a beta testing for it. If it works out for us, the rest of the departments in the county will get these. The beauty of these are it's digital. So you'll forget the VHF, which is basically a line of sight. The bad news is if you got scanners, you're not going to hear any of the pages anymore. So you have to buy a digital 800 megahertz pager. This allows us to listen to the state police, HVA, our medic side, the county sheriff, our pages. And so instead of giving an individual firefighter a $5,000 portable, we give them an under $500 pager. So this will allow them to hear the rest of the conversations that we were missing out before. So again, this is a beta test that's provided by the county as a part of the millage that was approved. So really happy about that. We also were approved with the county grant for fire hose purchases. The fiduciary will be Ann Arbor Township Fire Department. I'm not sure exactly how much we're going to get, but as a grant, we have to match the FEMA funds of 10%. And so if we ask for $100,000 worth of hose, we have to come up with 10 grand, but then we get $100,000 worth of hose. So I'll get that information from Ann Arbor Township Fire Department as they finalize the number of departments that went into it. But that's great news for us because some of our hose is really old, and it's going to make a big difference for us. We talked about garage doors and bid specs. So other than that, does the board have any questions for myself?
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Supervisor, we went past the clerk. I wanted to say a couple of things about the election. If you have any.
Probably back to you.
All right. Many of you know that we had a recount after the election on August 2nd. This was my first recount that I've had as clerk of Township here. And it was very eye-opening and eye-learning experience. We had to recount every single ballot that came through the township in August. And it was held at the county offices. And of course, we were not, the Salem Township was not in charge of it, the county was in charge of it. And there were approximately 12 workers that were hired in to do this recount. Several board of canvassers and several county election officials, so they were all supervising the recount. I figured that they would use the tabulators, just like we do as in a regular election. They did not. They counted by hand every single ballot. So, fortunately, basically there was no significant difference. So the official count stands as is. And unfortunately, it was very nice. When I was there at lunchtime, the county bought everybody pizza. And I said, Ed, that was great that you bought pizza for everybody. He goes, Dell, you bought the pizza for everybody. He was Salem Township. And I realized that Salem Township will be picking up the expenses, the prorated share of the entire cost. We don't know how much that will be. Definitely over $1,000, but maybe more. So that was a learning experience for me. I didn't realize that. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the official count stands as is, and we'll keep going. But we'll get the invoices soon.
What was the reason for the count?
What was the reason?
No, who ordered it? That's
Who
better.
ordered it or asked for it?
One of the trustees that didn't win.
Kimberly White.
Just send it over there.
You know. So anyway, that's my report on the.
Okay, moving on down. Washtenaw County Law Enforcement Report has been submitted. And we're down to board discussion on the Chubb Road paving projects. Mr. Connors?
If you recall, last month, we passed a resolution to fund, or to give the contract for the engineering cost to Bergman and Associates. They were the ones that gave us the lowest. The county felt was the best one, and we had our initial meeting with them a couple weeks ago, and they're kicked off and they're running. One of the things that I was not truly aware of when we passed that motion was the fact that there's going to be certain costs that are going to be borne by Washtenaw County Road Commission. Namely, when we get it back in, Bergman will do the right-of-way study. But when it comes down to negotiating the right-of-ways as to what they need, what has to be done, what's the owner's responsibilities, and all that kind of stuff that goes with it, that is on the shoulders of the Washtenaw County. Some of these right-of-ways can get very expensive. And what we need to do is we need to go through and do due diligence. One of the areas that I was not really too favorable of is it's kind of like we have no idea what those costs will be. And I kind of said, well, I don't really intend that I want to give you a blank check. But what we have done and through negotiations through our attorney, and he has done an excellent job with Mark out at the McCollum, out in the county out there. And we have come up with an agreement whereby we will be, and I'm going to be putting this forth as a motion, that I move that Salem Township pay any additional expenses that are incurred by right-of-way needs for the WCRC staff time and otherwise toward projects administration to develop a project bid package. And that kind of gives them the administrative costs that they will have, and we will have to pick that up. But anything over and above what may be coming from the bid package, from the studies, we will have to bring back before the board to make consideration whether we will continue to go depending upon cost, or what we have to do with the final awarding of the contract. This contract is an extremely aggressive contract. They want to go out for bid about the 1st of April. And there's a lot of work that has to go on between now and then, and they are already started. There's a lot of work that's been started and going. So to that end, we need to help cover some of the administrative costs that the road commission will incur. Any addition to that, Ed?
The supervisor, if I may, the motion should include authorizing the supervisor to sign the contract, because the contract that was presented at the last meeting is different than the contract presently presented to the board.
Okay.
The reason for that is that in the last contract, the board believed it was only voting to approve the $134,950 for Bergman due to preliminary engineering. Mr. Trustee Trent brought forth the suggestion that we want to make sure that we're not writing them a blank check and accountable for a lot of cost overruns. So I revised the contract to say, in effect, that we were not going to be responsible for anything over and above that amount to Bergman. The road commission said that was not acceptable to them because they would have administrative costs and additional costs to put the bid package together. So after substantial back and forth negotiations, it was agreed that the way the contract reads now is that we are going to pay Bergman the $134,900.50, not to exceed that amount, as the township recognized that additional costs will be incurred in putting the bid package together, but that the county, the road commission, will keep the township advised of those costs as they're incurred, and if at any point the township decides we don't want to go forward with this project, we'll have the right to back out and just be responsible for whatever costs are incurred up to that point in time. So it'll be a constant exchange back and forth between the road commission and the township, so that we know what costs are being incurred, and we can at any point say, you know, we don't want to go forward, or we do want to go forward. So just I want to make sure the board members are all aware of that. And I appreciate Mr. Trent's suggestion last month. It was a good one, and because of that, we have a contract now. I think both parties, both sides understand exactly what we're dealing with.
And any of you that were not here at the last meeting, just so up to date, but this is about the paving the Chubb Road project between 6 and 5, and then 5 and Chubb up to Napier Road. For our heavy industrial area to deal with the issues that we've had with the dust and the traffic on that road. And the end result would be a special assessment assessed to property owners in that area. And but once again, depending on how expensive this is going to be, and then we're just going to have to see how long of the assessment this might incur people who live along there or have businesses there. But this is a project that we have to get done. So we need to, but I guess the most important thing is when they talk about road right-of-ways and they talk about issues like that will come up, at that point, it would be brought to the board, and then at that point, from the board stand, is if it should go forward or not, depending on what the costs are. I mean, there's a lot of issues that could come up, and that's what we're gonna have to deal with. There's a low area there on the 5 mile corridor between Chubb and Napier that I can see that being an issue, and maybe some other road right-of-ways up near the railroad tracks. So we'll just see how it goes. So, but at that, I guess the other thing that I talked to the road commission about is that once they get to that certain point, if the board decided to stop it at that time, it would stop. It would not mean that we would owe that total amount of money.
But they will let us know the cost of the right-of-ways, those acquisitions, any eminent domain before those are incurred.
But if it stopped, let's say it's too expensive, we decide to stop, we wouldn't owe that total amount of money. It would be whatever the money was.
Incurred up to that point in time, correct.
Yeah, we're being billed on a
Any other questions on this board?
So are you making the motion now, Dale,
I think-
or? are you-
I think what I said before, really, and after that discussion here, I really think that we really need to approve the agreement here between the township and, because it would be different than what we had approved last meeting.
So just a motion to approve this agreement.
Again, just so the board is aware, because of the negotiation that went back and forth, the road commission just approved this version of the contract, and they gave us verbal approval that this was acceptable to them yesterday, and that's why it wasn't in the board packet.
Sure.
But they've also emphasized that if the contract is not approved by our board tonight, that the project would probably be delayed, would not occur within the timeframe that we wanted to.
And we are slated to get this project done starting next year.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion, board members?
You need to support.
Got support on this? Mr. Lindsley supports. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Whitaker, can I make a suggestion? You know that they're trying to do something about the truck routes. The dump is working with it, Northville Township's working with it. Is there something you can do at the same time on Chubb to implement those trucks to have to go south on that new road that you're putting in?
That would be the goal.
Okay. But if there's not signs put up, you know they don't have to do it. That's why I'm asking. Okay.
And just to inform you a little bit about what's going to happen, because we asked, Gary and I asked one of the residents or one of the business owners down here on Chubb Road whether they wanted a Class A road or do they wanted to leave it just as they, or they have to have the weight restrictions on the crosswalk. And the county came back and says they're not giving us that option. It will be a Class A road, which means that the trucks can go down there full weight all year long. And being that that has happened, we had originally said we'll just go up to the paving right there on advanced disposal. That is not a Class A surface from their office road there down to the corner of Napier. So the paving project will go all the way to Napier Road because that will all be a Class A surface.
On 5 Mile.
On 5 Mile. Which brings advanced disposal into the picture as well.
Okay. Next, Stantec, we would like to talk about another good new piece of good news that we have. Mr. Trent, would you like to start talking about that? I'll give you the honors.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Fellow board members, you'll recall that 3 years ago, with the assistance of our engineering firm, Stantec, that we applied for a SAW grant with the state of Michigan, and it was a lottery-based system. Any applications that were deemed acceptable were put in a queue, and it's been a lottery system depending on funding that was available each year as to who would be awarded a grant. And we just found out 2 weeks ago that Salem Township has been approved for a grant of $350,000 to help us in our administration and improvement of the wastewater treatment plant. And if our schedules work out, perhaps next month, a representative from Stantec will be present to go into more of the details of what's involved with that on our end, as far as obtaining the grant monies, the requirements that we're committing to over the course of getting those monies. It does require a 10% match from us, and we had budgeted $10,000, trying to break it up over a 3-year period for that. So we'll reevaluate if we've got enough funds in our budget to cover that match initially going forward. One of the big pluses with this is that it will allow us to essentially camera and develop an asset management program of the entire wastewater treatment system. And it also does require a rate analysis to be conducted during the course of that 3-year period. So it's a grant for 3 years. We have to complete a rate analysis within that time frame. And so that'll be an interesting situation based on one of our bonds getting paid off during that 3-year period, but with another one that needs to be paid off after that time frame. So that'll be part of the analysis that's done to help us determine if any rate increases need to be implemented going forward. And Stantec will, address more of that particular topic when they sit down with us. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Supervisor?
I think it's good news, and we need, you wanna talk a little bit about the permit 41, that should be about completed.
Yeah, that's item number 2 on the update list. You'll recall earlier in the year, we allocated funding to complete a Part 41 application with MDEQ, and Stantec has advised us in a meeting from last week that that work will be completed by the end of the month. So monies that we approved for pump repairs, data logger, as well as the sand filter replacement and enhancements there will be completed by the end of the month. And that will take care of all of the loose ends with the violation notice from previous in the year. Also tied in with that Part 41 and with a recent rainstorm from August where we got a couple of inches of rain in a 2-day period, and with the construction that was going on at Salem Elementary School, we actually saw an infiltration of water into the system. And between folks at Highland Treatment and Stantec, they were able to help identify what they believe was the root cause of that. And it wasn't a problem with our system, it was a special cause that produced this huge influx where during the construction of the elementary school, they decided to turn on every faucet and flush every toilet at the same time to clear out their system, and plus they were chlorinating the entire school, which has a detrimental effect on the wastewater treatment plant situation. So they've had an interesting month down there with Highland Treatment trying to take care of some of these special problems that cropped up in the last 30 days. But
And to add on to that, the road project that you've seen through the hamlet has, in my opinion, over the last few rains that we have coming down and watching it, a lot of it, the people to the west of us on the south side constantly have been flooding through their backyards. It's like a river running through. They would open up some of the manhole covers to actually drain it, which also affected the plant. And now, these last few rains where we've had heavy rains, there's no flooding down there. So that's really helped out a lot for the culvert that they put in down there, and ditching it properly and running it to where it should go. So hopefully that will help some of the drain issues we have in Hamlet also. So, and also help the treatment plant. All right, anything else?
one last item, Mr. Supervisor, just as a tidbit of information for the board, I placed on your table tonight the proposal from Stantec related to a non-motorized pathway along Pontiac Trail. This is a project that first had some discussion 5 years ago at this board table. And you'll see on the front cover page that Mark Pasco, the consultant from Stantec, has done a nice job of briefly summarizing some of the key events that occurred over 5 years ago where this was being considered by us, Northfield Township and Ann Arbor Township, to put in a non-motorized pathway from 8 Mile along Pontiac Trail, going through a small section of Northfield Township, and then ultimately into Ann Arbor Township. There's been some significant changes that have occurred over the landscape in the last 5 years that are making this more of an opportunity for us to reevaluate this proposal again. What's changed is that there's been greater advancement of the Trails to Trails program throughout the state of Michigan. The state DNR has been very proactive in providing grant monies to communities to extend trails. It's one of the key elements of the open space and parks plan and part of the master plan that communities are looking at as well too, to make their communities more walkable and enhance the quality of life. Another big development that occurred just a couple years ago is that there was a bike path that was installed on 8 Mile that connects Volunteer Park at Dixboro Road between 8 and 9 Mile to our Salem South Lyon Library at 8 Pontiac Trail. And also the Ann Arbor Township has had a large number of projects that they've undertaken in the last 3 years. And they've been able to obtain grant monies for about 90% of all of their trail project that they're working on. And so they are embracing the concept of trails. And so we had a meeting with representatives from Ann Arbor Township, Northfield Township, and Stantec a couple weeks ago. And the consensus among all of us was that we wanted Stantec to put a proposal together to look at what it would cost to do a feasibility study to see what it would take to put in a non-motorized pathway along Pontiac Trail and connect the bike path that ends at our library and hook it into a current trail that exists right on the border of Ann Arbor Township and the city of Ann Arbor. And from some of the verbal discussion that Stantec has had with various agencies and entities that provide grant funding for this, whenever you have multiple communities working together on a project, it gets better attention, more favorable possibility of it being funded, and the county is, Washington County Parks and Rec is indicating that this type of project would get a high rating and contingent on their renewal or millage request that's going to be on the ballot in November, that this could get a lot of favorable attention. And so 5 years ago, there was some reluctance to move forward with the feasibility study. Part of the feasibility study determines which side of the road does it make sense to have a non-motorized pathway on Pontiac Trail. And so this is something that is a discussion item tonight at Northfield Township. It's an item that will be on the board agenda in Ann Arbor Township next week, seeking approval for their contribution. The discussion we had was that each township would pick up 1/3 of the cost of the feasibility study, which is $15,000. So it's a very minor investment for us to evaluate whether this is something that will work for each community, and it would take about 60 to 90 days for Stantec to complete the proposal. So I just wanted to advise you of it, that we're having this communication and dialogue with our neighboring communities, and it's a potential project that would get a lot of grant money support if we decided to move forward on this. So depending on what happens in Northfield Township tonight and Ann Arbor Township next week, it's an item that I'm looking forward to being able to bring back to the board next month. The timeline for submitting requests for these type of projects with the state DNR is April 1st of next year. So a feasibility study needs to be completed and all the grant applications done before that deadline in order to qualify for the grant line. So thank you for letting me
Are you done?
take the time.
I mean, you were talking the whole night.
It sounds like you're saying I'm long-winded, Mr.
I
Supervisor.
mean, I'm about ready to fall asleep. No, I'm just, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Trent? Oh, go ahead, TJ, I'm sorry.
Where, so you're talking the trail from the library to, where does the trail pick up in Ann Arbor?
There's a diagram that should be
Got a
in the
map,
back there.
the last sheet.
And to see how many miles it is?
It's a 10-mile, and of course, the longest section of it is in Salem Township, so.
That's what I was gonna mention.
That was one of the reasons it didn't gain any favor 5 years ago, but.
Yeah, item number 5 indicates that Salem Township having the largest share of traffic. So, just curious if that would, if we would endure most of the cost of it, or if it's split up.
Oh, that's prorated.
Yeah.
Seeking the support of the other communities, and as I indicated, Ann Arbor Township has had monumental success the last 2 years with some of their trails projects. So they're getting close to $2 million for their trail projects.
All right. Any other? I don't cut anybody off. Okay, we're down to public comment. Dan?
I would like to thank the board for taking action to give the residents relief on the drainage tax. Also, my wife and I were driving down North Territorial the other day and really appreciated how the road has been improved. We remember how bad it was. And I said, you know, a lot of roads have been improved lately in the township. You know, we've got Curtis Road, we got 6 Mile Road, Salem Road. And I really want to thank Dale Converse and TJ McLaughlin for their work going out of state to find out how to do the best job on Chubb Road at the least cost and to get the best road. Also, so I think that the board doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the things that are going on in the township. We hear all the negative things, but I'd like to just reiterate a few positive things. In regards to the recount on the election, I'd like to say I worked as an election inspector in Salem Township for several years. And I really appreciate the integrity and the honesty and the diligence of the people who work on the elections and the cooperation between the township and the people that work the elections. I think we have the most honest, accurate elections in this whole country. And so I just wanted to say that because I've witnessed it for several years. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a quick question. What is the status on the Shasta development as far as, have they obtained a water source? What's going on with that project?
Just, you know, update, they're still looking at, they haven't made any decisions, and they haven't, as far as to get the sewer or water, we know that Detroit water is available up near Ann Arbor, Napier Road to tap it. That's available. So water's not the issue, it's just the sewer. So we have an option, which we've talked about at the board table here before, of going straight to Yucca up in Ypsilanti, which is maybe 7, 8 miles. There's been talk of Wayne County that maybe there's a way that they want, you know, with the Great Lakes Authority now, doing some modeling, you know, to figure out if there's a way to tap into that system. They're looking at that. This is not a cost to the township other than to see what's available out there. So at this time, it's still something that the developers have to figure out how to privately fund and not to be on the backs of the township residents. They've signed a development agreement that, you know, before anything's ever done or any shovels go in the ground, that, you know, they have to privately fund utilities that are gonna go in the whole USD, the 1,400 acres. So, you know, there's nothing been done on it, so if that's, hopefully that answers your question. But it is available as
It's
of now.
still kind of in limbo then.
And our only fear is, as I have talked to the public before and warned the public, is that we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where there isn't capacity. So if we ever come to that point, then you have what we have here with the wastewater treatment plant that's just going to all cost us in the long run, because it's a system that has issues and failing, and we don't have any growth here in the hamlet, therefore it's not added. But then sometimes they're saying it's already the capacity, and it's a problem. We do not want to be in the wastewater treatment plant business. And we don't want sections in the USD, if it ever develops, we don't want, you know, a wastewater treatment plant on one side and maybe a sewer going to Plymouth or whatever. It can't be a hodgepodge mess. We have to have it on one system, and that's what we're stressing with any developers that are considering that, so.
Thank you.
Okay? Yes.
I'd highly suggest that you do look into that trail system, especially if there's that kind of grant money available, because that's just pennies for you, for the township to come up with versus what the grant money is out there. I've rode across the state of Michigan from Oscoda to Empire on horse trails that are shared with hikers and fishermen and people who camp throughout the state. And we've also seen land out around Munith and Stockbridge where there's a beautiful trail system, rails to trails, where people can horseback ride on the side and they can ride their bikes and walk down through the center. And a lot of your power lines and your consumer power industries where their piping lines are put in, they're more than willing to let you put in a trail system along those also. You just can't pave it. It would have to be bark or something. Most of the time they won't let you pave it. But the trail systems, people want to live by those so that they can get out and exercise without having to drive and create all the smog to get into the park systems. And it's a piece of the outdoors without having to drive 3 miles up north. So I highly suggest the free money's there for the grant. And, you know, it's a great thing. People pay premium prices to live by those areas.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Mr. Supervisor, question on that, simply because my wife is regularly concerned. This trail system, and perhaps I should be addressing Trustee Trent. This will take the bicycles off the corner fenders of cars on Pontiac Trail and then put them on a trail so they will be safer and so the cars will be safer.
Correct. I believe so, that's what.
I mean, that would have the intent that it would be that wide and be publicized as that.
Right.
Definitely one of the pluses.
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure many of us have seen close calls between
That makes you
bicyclists and
Right.
vehicles, so yeah, that's definitely a plus.
And then conversations.
Right. Okay, anybody else? Yes, yes.
Yeah, we've been paving a lot of roads lately and doing the tar and stone. Last year, 6 Mile from Pontiac Trail to Angle there was ground down and top coated new.
Right.
Why has part of that road been repaved just a few weeks ago?
Cadillac Asphalt is the one that they had won the bid to do that job. They did it incorrectly, so at their expense, they redid it. And it was a bad job.
Okay,
We got a lot of calls about it, but the county made them come out and redo that.
okay, because I was wondering why
Sure.
put that paving there when from Angle Road there to Curtis is a mess.
Right.
Because I'd like to see that, just that area done,
Right.
if anything.
Well, I agree.
It's a nasty stretch of road.
I know somebody who lives there.
Yeah. And I know someone who goes by your place
I
every
know,
day.
I know. I kinda told them, don't do my road, because people say, oh, he's getting special treatment, so I just leave it alone. But, it's bad, it needs to be done. Mr. Horton.
I'm not really sure, but when asphalt trucks, those big asphalt trucks backed into the school in order to pave, I think where the entrance is, they've depressed the new asphalt down. I don't know whether you've noticed that or not.
Right.
But if you come up the hill, you can look up there, and there's a dip
Right.
where they back.
They are addressing that with the people who are doing that. I did talk to Mike at the road commission that helped do this project on Salem Road, and they're in contact with them to either get that fixed or bring that up to par. Appreciate that. Okay, anybody else? Lori?
So what is Charter Communications, the old cable company?
Yeah.
Is that ever gonna change?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
How many's happy with Charter Communication that's in here? Not too many. It's been a franchise, actually the township, how much does the township make on that? It's a franchise that the township actually, they pay us, I forget what the amount is, I can find out what that is, but, not to say that we can't look at, again, whenever the contract is, we can look it up to see if we want to entertain the thought of moving from Charter to somebody else. But we do have a contract with them, and they do pay some dues that comes to the township coffers.
Can't you have multiple now?
Yeah.
They're not cable companies.
I
have AT&T.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Okay. All right, anybody else? I do have a few supervisors' comments, if you don't mind. First, I kind of want to, I think there might be some copies of the advanced disposal news release. So I do have a few comments about that. I want to read a couple things that they have said in there if you haven't read it. It does say down here about taking their future expansion off the table with the Solid Waste Committee in Washtenaw County. Then one paragraph here, it says, we recognize that our focus needs to be on actions that we can take to make Ann Arbor Hills a great community partner with our neighbors. This is coming from Kelly Rooney, who's new there, by the way. Ann Arbor Hills is responding to concerns and requests from Northville Township Supervisor Bob Nix and Salem Township Supervisor Gary Whitaker on behalf of the township residents to tackle issues that include resurfacing 5-mile increasing dust control on dirt roads near the area and directing trucks to use only designated routes in and out of the landfill to help ease traffic congestions. Rooney noted that the company is paying close attention to its neighbors' concerns and plans to host a series of meetings soon to invite the community into a conversation about how Arbor Hills can make future improvements that benefit the community. Arbor Hills is turning its focus towards our neighbors as a top priority. So, once again, I'm going to just say one more time that when the landfill came to Salem Township and talked about expansion, we wanted them to come to the public here in a public meeting and announce what they were doing. I will make one more time to say that I, from the county, when I got the call about being on the Solid Waste Committee, that I wanted to be on there for one reason only, and the reason was, and many people know this, and I've made it public, was the issues that we are dealing with. Now, I'm not putting blame, people say blaming the past or whatever. There are people sitting on this board that was back then that approved of the expansion for 20 years in 2009. And my concern has always been, and the reason why I wanted to be on the committee, is because what did Salem Township get for the 20 years of expansion that they put into it, of the concerns and everything of the infrastructure around Salem Township? I have never said There have been people who have made comments that I have publicly said, or have talked to people and said that was for this, that I was, it was already a done deal. We can show you flyers. This is absolutely false and untrue. I would challenge anybody to come here or confront me personally that I have ever said such a comment. All I've said is I wanted to know from the township residents if they are for this or against it. And we need to talk as a community and come together and see what's best for our community. And, but the issue at hand is the 80 acres across the street was no good deal for this township. 20 years, and I'll give you some examples of some of the people who called and talked to me. They said, well, if you got 80 acres across the street, you would be crazy not to be for the expansion, because that 80 acres is worth a ton of money that the township could sell to the landfill to have an expansion across the street. That's a true statement. That's being a businessman, that's worth a lot of money to them. But to us, if it closes in 17 years or whatever the date is, it's worthless as far as I'm concerned, right across from to dig a pond, for me to go fishing with my grandkids and swimming is not a good deal for the township. So I believe that the township, as a resident, not as the supervisor, but as a resident here, we did not really get a fair deal of extending that thing for 20 years. So, what I'm saying now is, and I want to commend this board, that some of the emails that people would put into these fine folks here, instead of retaliating against Republic and Advance and their legal disputes and not bringing this up and not getting into the weeds with them taking sides, is we just don't want to burn bridges. We want to say, we have a problem with our infrastructure down there, and we have to figure a way how to fix it. And moving forward, I think it's a great opportunity. I think all communities, Northville Township and also Salem Township, this is something that should have been done in 2009. We need truck routes. We just need stuff done, and now is the time, if they come back to us, we need to not negotiate about what's going to happen in the future other than to clean up our infrastructure. And that's I think should make all of us happy. But I think that we all need to come together and make sure that this is done right. So this is a good thing. So enough on that. I want to talk about the land preservation. We talked about this last month, about meeting with them to give them direction. I have talked with the Legacy group in Washtenaw County that would like to meet with us to talk about what the different ways that we can work together with the land preservation and give them direction moving forward. So I talked to Sue Bejan, who's the chairperson, about that. We are going to cancel the meeting for this month in September, and hopefully have a meeting with the Legacy people and have a bunch of information that they can provide us about how to move forward and do some positive things. I think some of the times I've mentioned about, I don't know how many of you have walked over at the land preserve, but it's a beautiful place. It's been open now for a couple months, and if you haven't been able to walk over there, we challenge you to check that out. Culverts. We've had a lot of problems. The county, just before our last meeting, had brought up about the failure of different culverts in our town. I talked to Roy Townsend today, who's the director of the Washtenaw County Road Commission. There are 13 local in Washtenaw County culverts that are failing, that are closed, just like ours. One on Pontiac Trail, and I forget what other, not in Salem, but somewhere else. So we have the 6 Mile and Chubb Road, which is closed. We have the one down at 5 Mile and Curry Road. And then we have partially closed at 5 Mile between Tower and Curtis. And of course, we have the one at Pontiac Trail between 7 and 8. So The county is saying that there's no monies to fix these. There's been case history in Washtenaw County where some of these local roads have been closed for 2 to 3 years. We cannot, wait for that. So what we've done is we've asked them, we need a price amount of what this is gonna cost. Now, they are meeting, the road commission is meeting next week with their board to go over to see what monies they can come up with to allot to correct these culverts. And then they will present that to us, and then we're gonna have to decide what to do. And I'm just telling you right up, we gotta figure out how to get these roads open. I mean, I just don't see that we can, some people are glad that they're closed because there's no traffic on the road. But they need to be open. For safety concerns, it's a real issue, it's a real problem. The other issue that the county has where I can't get this information from them, and it's so frustrating, is that the DEQ has gotten involved, and they had a meeting with them last week, and they have to, send their engineers out, and, Roy was telling me that they could even take, like Curry Road by 5 Mile and say they need a bridge there instead of just culverts. Well, they had a great meeting, he told me, and they just said, they'll replace the culverts, but they still have to go through that process. So he told me the meeting went well. I mean, because then we'd be talking millions to try to get these things fixed. So he was positive from their meeting with the DEQ last week, and next week they should have a meeting to see how much money that they could come up with, and then hopefully in the next couple of weeks they'll have a figure of what this is going to cost. So feel free to call me. Or come in and talk to the office. We'll try to keep it updated on our website about what's going on with the roads. But it's been a real inconvenience, I know, for a lot of people, so we need to stay on that. All right, I think I've about covered everything. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We have refreshments and right there. Furman, you got it?
Does the state have anything to do? I talked to some of the county guys, and they say that the culvert that the water is running through is regulated by the state and not the county.
Well, it's regulated by the DEQ, and that's why they're involved. And it's where,
And they say it's 3 to 4 months for them to come up with something to tell you what you can do and what you can't do.
well, I'm hoping it's gonna be sooner than that because we really need to get on these, so. All right, folks, get some refreshments, hang around, and thanks for being here tonight.